It is not our fault that we cannot make peace with a situation or change. As human beings, we are programmed to adopt patterns. In our childhood, we are installed with software. A software for walking, a software for speech, for swimming, reading, playing the piano, cooking, and hundreds, if not thousands, of other types of software and programs. Throughout our lives, we upgrade some of the software, the skills we acquire in our fields of work and our hobbies. We improve ourselves, investing time and effort in improving the skill. If we practice shooting hoops in basketball, we will eventually score more shots. If we invest hours in playing the piano, we will play it more impressively. Sometimes there are regressions, sometimes we reach a standstill, but if we practice something every day, we will gradually improve and succeed. There are some who, weren't satisfied with their musical proficiency during childhood, stopped practicing, and declared themselves as lacking talent. And some continued to try again and again. If we continue practicing and keep moving on every time we fall, there is no chance we will remain at the same level where we started. No chance. There is no such thing as failure. There are only lessons from which we learn. As Thomas Edison said, "I have never failed in my life. I've just found 10,000 ways that things don't work." Now, when does a lesson become a failure? When we finally give up and decide that this is our last lesson, or when we insist on a specific way of doing something which has proven to be the wrong one. We experience many failures/lessons in our lives. In fact, we fail tens of thousands of times throughout our lives. Failure is the most common human experience, from failing as toddlers, learning to walk, accidentally breaking dishes, parking badly, failed relationships, projects that did not pick up, professional disappointments, bad grades, and physical and emotional conflict. Some of these events cause us anxiety. Someone who fails a driving test will be afraid to take the test again. Someone with several disappointing relationships will be afraid to start a new one. Some convince themselves that this situation is a fixed pattern. They reach terrible conclusions that this is what we are. That if this is how we have been in the past, this is most likely how we will be in the future. Accordingly, we will try as much as possible to avoid going on a date with someone new, postpone meetings or projects, and invest less effort at social events to protect ourselves from expected disappointment. Because that's what normally happens in our life. Disappointment. The fact is that our fears are stronger than our hopes. And therefore, it is important to understand that the past is not equal to the future. Our past does not represent who we are and what will happen in the future. The past is history. It is not who we are. It is only what happened to us chronologically, and this past does not define us. The past has perhaps frozen some parts of us that need to defrost. And besides, what would be the worst outcome of a test that we did not pass, another unsuccessful date, a lost basketball game? What is the worst that could happen from something we wanted but which did not work out as we expected? It could only be one thing. That we go home and watch our favorite Netflix series. Same as every day. That's all. And that is not so terrible. It's like that joke about the child who asked his father, "Dad, what is God?" And the father answers, "Well, my son, the feeling when you really want something and you build this high expectation that something will finally work out. So God is the one who rejects your wish." Not entirely. We have a tendency to focus on bad events that have happened to us, forgetting pretty quickly in all successful positive events in our lives. In fact, psychologist Daniel Kahneman showed that the way we remember something from the past is not related to the event itself, but to what we felt during that event. or as Professor Antonio Damasio defined it, we are not thinking machines, we are feeling machines that think. If we were on a vacation in Rome and somebody pickpocketed us, that is what we will remember from the trip. The bad feeling of having our wallet stolen. We also have a tendency to think about the past in alternative terms, a psychological phenomenon called counterfactual thinking. This refers to regretting our decisions, believing that things could have turned out differently, like in the movie Sliding Doors. If only I did this or that, if only I chose otherwise, if I had only walked the path I was offered, it would have all been very different. This tendency to regret the things we did in the past is related to the erroneous assumption that a different choice would have turned everything around completely. But this is rarely the way things work, because we have a tendency also to idealize the alternative. If we quit medical school, we regret the decision, usually because we imagine ourselves in a fancy auditorium in Harvard giving a lecture as world-renowned brain surgeons. We tend to ignore the years of stressful work and 16-hour shifts in overcrowded wards. We ignore the endless bureaucracy and reports that the doctors need to complete for the hospital. We ignore the fact that doctors barely see their friends and families. So not only is it futile to think that the past could have been different, it is probably not much different than our actual past. In fact, it probably happened exactly as it should have, because we had reasons for our choices. Furthermore, these decisions created a chain of positive events that have happened to us since. Maybe because we were not accepted into the program we wanted, we traveled and met our spouse, made new friends, got an interesting job, started a project we never thought about. Would you be ready to give these things up? In fact, and this is a great fact, more than 95% of the things that happen to us in life are positive. Only a small percentage of it was negative. And for some reason, we give it the same weight. The decisions, actions, and events of the past were not black and white. We knew how to roll with the punches and make adaptations and changes in our life. For example, as children, we were able to make the transition from being frozen to thawing out rather quickly. When we studied music, did we stop performing because we went flat in one recital? Did we stop playing basketball because we missed a shot? Did we drop out of school because we failed 2 or 3 tests? No, we tried again, because we understood that this is how life works. If you do not succeed, you try again. And for some reason, we refuse to accept this logic as we get older. We give up too quickly, and at some point we decide, that's it. I've reached my limit. This is what there is. This is who I am. Game over. Not only is this false, but statistically, every lesson brings us closer to success. If we failed a few tests, we have a better chance of passing the next test. If we are salespeople and we have not managed to sell so far, there is a good chance that we will sell to the next customers. And if we had troubled relationships, there is no reason in the world that we should not find a good relationship. Not all men are the same, and not all women are the same. Every situation is completely different, but with an added value, another experience acquired. Psychologist Guy Winch describes social skills as a muscle that, if not exercised, leads to weakness and loss of confidence. The more we exercise our social muscles, the more people we meet despite our fears, and the more we talk, show interest, our social skills will strengthen and become less affected by rejections and disappointments, until one day something just clicks. But enough with the long introduction. Let's move on immediately to the first step in intentional forgetting.